Alright guys, so now we will be getting started with our next category, that is the condition and logical functions. So we will be exploring about each and every single function that we are going to have in this specific category. So let us get started, and a practical implementation we will be looking into with respect to its two of the most important functions that we will be making the use of in our rest of the videos as well. So mostly whenever you are going forward with DAX, the first category you will be making the use of, and you might would have seen this specific function uh, in if you're coming back from a coding background itself, right? Like if condition you might would have came across for the most of the time if you're coming from any of the coding background, if you're having knowledge from C++, C or Java, or even if you're working from Python, then you might would have came across this if clause, right? That if this condition is coming out to be true, then this specific value should be returned, or if this condition is not coming out to be true, else this specific value should be returned, right? So that's exactly how this if will be working over here as well. In the case of if, you will be so if is going to be a first logical function, wherein if you will be first of all putting a logical test, that if this logical test is coming out to be true, then you should first of all return this result if it is true, right? Like for example, I will be showing you one of the example that is in my customer lookup table itself. I was having one of the column which was giving me the insight about the total number of children, right? So with respect to each and every single customer, we were looking into that whether if those customers are having any number of children or not. So if the number of children of a particular customer is coming out to be greater than zero, then we can come to this conclusion that that specific customer is a parent, right? But if the number of customer belonging to that specific if the number of children belonging to that specific customer is not exactly coming out to be greater than zero, or if it is equal to zero, then we can simply come to this conclusion that that specific customer is not a parent, right? So you are putting a condition on the basis of, or a logical test on the basis of the number of children a customer is having. And as per that, you are coming to a conclusion that, or as per that, you are coming to a result, that is whether if that specific customer is a parent or not, right? And that's exactly how this if clause used to work. So if this specific logical test is coming out to be true, then this specific value should be returned, or our second value should be returned if it is coming out to be as false. These three parameters you will be always coming across, right? And it will be returning a single value based on what condition is being met, right? So if condition is true, then one value will be returned on that basis. Basically, what kind of value you are getting on the basis of condition coming out to be true or false, that is something you will be coming across via making the use of this if clause, right? That is going to be the first thing. Now in our second clause, we will be coming across if error. So this if error is a kind of bit new, wherein what exactly we'll be looking into, that this specific if error will be evaluating an expression. And if you are coming across one of the error, like if error, you can mostly relate it with respect to try and catch block, right? So try and exception which you are having, wherein in the case of try block, you used to put a statement that you should get definitely try this particular expression, and if this particular expression is returning us a error, then if it is returning us an error, then what kind of value should be returned on the basis of that specific error that you specify in your except block, right? In a similar way, this if error used to work. So this if error will also be evaluating a particular expression, and if that specific expression is returning as error, then instead of representing that error, some other value should be returned, right? So that's exactly how it used to work. So this if error is having its syntax as if error function, I will be passing on the value, and if it is returning the specific for this value, if it is returning an error, then you can simply specify from your side that what should be the value in the second parameter. What should be the value that should be replacing our first value when we are coming across this error, right? So this is something you will be coming across when you are going forward with if error. So it returns a specified value that you are specifying as a second parameter. If it returns an error. Otherwise, it will be returning the expression itself. Just similar to that of try and catch, right? Only when the try block is returning some error, then only whatever code you are going to write in the except block, that will be getting returned, right? But if that block is working completely fine, then we won't be getting any sort of error, right? So this is something you can accept out of your if error as well. Now the third one is going to be important, just like the first one, that is switch. So we will be making a separate video that how exactly this switch used to work, just because switch is like using multiple if else. You know, when you are when you want to go forward with putting multiple if condition, then you can simply go forward with switch. As switch used to work with a list of values, that out of these list of values, that in this given list, if the first value is there, then with respect to the first value in the list, we can return a specific value. In a similar way, with respect to the second value in the list, we can come up with the second value. So just like that, what value is going to be there in the given list, as per that, you can simply come out of a value, right? So switch basically works on a kind of expression itself. First of all, let me show you the syntax for it. So switch will be working on one of the expression, and it's like, for example, your column is having around 10 number of categories, right? So if you are coming across this specific category, category 1, then this value should be returned. If you're coming across category 2, then this specific value should be returned, right? So this after this expression, value 1 will be representing that first category. So if you're coming across this specific category, then you should go forward with returning this specific result. So for this category 1, this result 1 should be shown, right, or returned. In a similar way, for category 2, result 2 should be shown. For category 3, result 3 should be shown, like that, right? So just like that, you can go forward with this, depending upon how many number of categories you are having. So it will be evaluating an expression against an list of values, right? And it will be returning one of possible expression. So based on whatever value you're getting over here, on that basis only result 1 will be shown. So if you're having the number of values from value 1 till value 2, value 3, up till value n, then based on whatever value you're getting from value 1 to value n, you will be returning the result from result 1 to result n. Right? So that's exactly how you will be simply going forward with the unique value itself that will be getting returned. But that will be completely dependent upon that what exactly is this specific value you are getting. So your result value will be completely dependent upon this specific value. That is the second parameter, right? Then we are having and clause. And clause you might could have already came across kind of basic clause it is. What exactly you can do is that you can simply go forward with putting two logical tests, right? So if both of these logical tests are coming out to be true, then we can simply return a specific value. But if any of the logical test is not coming out to be true, then we won't be returning the proper result, right? So it will be evaluating both test and returns a value if both are coming out to be true. That is not the case with respect to our next clause, that is OR. In the case of OR, you are putting two logical tests only. A similar kind of expression you'll get to see, or a syntax you'll get to see, but the point is that it evaluates again both tests, but returns the difference that we can see in the case of and or is going to be, it returns a value if any of the expression, any of the condition or any of the logical test is coming out to be true. Right, so if logical test is also coming out to be true, still we can return a value in a similar way. If logical 2 is also coming out to be true, we can go forward with giving a returning a value, right? In a similar way, you can have double and as well. So double and we will be making the use of for most of the time, just because double and works on multiple logical tests. For and expression, or for and logical function. Right, so for example, if you're putting multiple logical tests from your side, that is test 1, test 2, test 3, like that, if you're putting around 10 number of tests as well, or let us go with n number of any number of logical tests you're putting from your side, and then if you want that out of any of these condition, or out of all of these conditions, right? In the case of double and, you should make sure that if you're putting around 15 number of conditions, then all of these 15 conditions should come out to be true. And only when each and every single condition from these 15 conditions is coming out to be true, then only a specific value will be returned. Right? So there is no limit over here in the case of double and. As in the case of this and expression, you will only be able to work with two of the logical tests. But if you're going forward with this double ampersand, then you will be able to work with multiple logical tests, right? Any number of logical tests you want to put. And then in a similar way, you can have this option that is double pipe kind of option, which will be working with multiple. Again, it works on multiple logical tests for or function or logical function, right? So it also works in a similar way, but over here, what exactly we are doing is that we are working with the or condition, right? So again, we can put around n number of conditions, but the point is that we want any of the condition to be come out to be true. So it is up to you if you want to put 15 number of conditions, 10 number of conditions, 20, 25, any number of conditions you want to put. That is completely up to you. But what exactly you want in this double pipe kind of option is that any one of the conditions should come out to be true, and then you will be able to return a value, right? So these are going to be the multiple logical function that you will be making the use of from your side, and we will be exploring mostly with this if clause, or with respect to this switch, just because mostly we will be going forward with these two functions itself, just because these are very important, and with respect to these and or as well, or double ampersand or, just because these are some sort of important uh, functions that we are having, right? So that's why we'll be going forward with this. In this specific video, we are just going to talk about this if clause, how exactly this if clause is working, right? So now let us get into our practical implementation. So let me show you that how exactly you can evaluate this if expression. So I was talking about one of the example wherein we were considering the number of children that a customer is having, and based on that we are returning that whether if the customer is a parent or not, right? So let us get into our table view. Let me get into my customer lookup. So customer lookup is having one of the column as total children, right? And what exactly I want is that from this total children itself, I want to create a new column wherein I will be working on row context. So if the row value is having total children value as 0, then that means that specific customer is not a parent. So in the same row, I will be getting the value for the parent as not a parent, right? But if the total children is coming out to be in the same row as, let us go with some other value like 1. So total children is coming out to be as 1. Then in the same row, we'll be getting the parent value as a parent. That yes, this customer is a parent, right? So again, a good example of row context you'll get to see when you are working with this example. And let us go forward with creating the new column over here. So let me give the name of this column as parent itself. And now I'm going forward with this if condition. So if you can see the expression itself, if logical test result if true and result if false, right? So if my logical test is going to be that customer lookup total children is coming out to be greater than 0, then that means what exactly the result I want, if it is coming out to be true, is I want the value to be shown in my parent table as a parent. And if it is not coming out to be true, then you can see what exactly the value you should put for result if false. That is not a parent. Or what exactly you can do is that you can simply go forward with yes or no, right? Just because already you are naming your column as parent. So yes, if the total children is coming out to be true, then yes, that specific customer is a parent. But if it is not coming out to be greater than 0, then definitely the value is going to be 0 itself, right? And if it is 0, then definitely we can come to this conclusion that that specific customer is not a parent. Let me press enter over here. You will get to see that whenever your total children is coming out to be 0 in the given row, then that specific customer is not a parent, right? No, you'll get to see. But if the number of total children is coming out to be 3 or greater than 0, then you will get to see that yes, that specific customer is a parent. So Olivia is a parent, right? Haley is also a parent. But Joe Rana is not exactly a parent, right? This conclusion you can come from your side. So that's exactly how this if clause used to work. So definitely, whenever you are going forward with if clause, you should definitely try from your side, just because if clause you will be making the use of most of the time in the rest of the videos as well. And from your side as well, if clause is definitely you will be going forward with for most of the time whenever you are evaluating a new table or whenever you are trying to evaluate a new column, right? That's why definitely go forward with if clause from your side as well. And we will be meeting you in the next video with learning about the switch clause, right? Switch function that we were discussing about. So that would be all in this video regarding the multiple condition and logical functions we are having. And let us meet in the next video with the switch logical function that we are having. So thank you. All right, guys, so let's get started with our switch function that we were discussing in the last video. So first of all, let us have a look upon the syntax of switch again, that what all parameters we have to look forward to whenever we are going forward with the switch function, right? So switch function, you have to give the name of the function at before the parenthesis. And now, first of all, you have to write the expression over here. So what do we exactly mean by expression is that you have to simply mention that specific column in which you are interested in. Like for example, in the last example that we were looking into in the previous video, we were actually evaluating that specific column which was giving us the insight about the total number of children we are having, right? So on the basis of the values that we were having into that specific column only, we were trying to evaluate a value, right? That's exactly how the switch function also used to work. So in switch, you have to first of all look upon that specific column from where you are trying to fetch the values, right? Or from where you will consider the values, and then you will be able to evaluate a result based on what value you are having in that specific expression or in that specific column itself. So expression stands for that specific column in which you are trying to fetch out the value, or from where you are trying to consider your value as, right? So for example, if my expression column is having value 1, then for value 1, I want to return the result as result 1. In a similar way, if it is having value 4, it's like value 4 is like a category. If it is having category 1, then result 1 should be shown into my new column. If it is having category 2, then result 2, category 3, result 3, category 4, result 4, like that. But if it is not exactly having any of these values, like for example, if it is having none of these categories that we are mentioning over here, then in that specific case, you have to mention a else value as well. That if any of this condition is not exactly matching, then you have to simply return another value that is not at all dependent upon the values that we were mentioning, right? So one thing you always have to make sure about in the switch clause, and that is you should always go forward with equal to only. So for example, if your given column is having the values like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so you should always go forward with if this specific column is equal to 1, then or if the value in this specific column is equal to 1, then this specific value should be returned. In a similar way, if this specific column is having the value equal to 2, then this specific value should be returned. So equal to is the only value that we can go forward with in switch. But there is going to be a condition that we will be discussing, that if we are not exactly going forward with equal to, and if we are trying to go forward with the comparison operator, then in that specific scenario, what exactly the kind of result we can expect out of it, that we will be discussing in the second example. But in our first example, let us simply go forward with switch clause, wherein we can first of all show you that how exactly switch clause will be helping you out to move forward from multiple if else to a switch clause, right? So switch clause is nothing but a kind of, you can call it as a kind of way to simply come out of your multiple if else clause. So for example, if you're making the, like for example, if your column is having around 10 number of categories, then for 10 number of categories, definitely you won't be writing these 10 number of if else clause, right? I mean, definitely that will be taking a lot of time. So that's why we will be switching to switch clause itself, so that time that we are spending in writing those 10 number of if else clause, that we are not exactly required to put in when we are going forward with switch, right? So we will be looking into this with respect to our first example itself. So I think you are now ready with looking into the practical implementation, right? So this expression you should always take care of from your side. So let us get into our practical implementation, and let me move forward into one of my table. So let us first of all, let us get into the table view. Now into my table view, let us look upon that specific column that we can go forward with for showing one of the best example, right? You can see that we are having one of the we are having one of the table over here as calendar lookup. So now from calendar lookup, what exactly I'm having is these information like the start of month, start of week, start of year, start of quarter, and year and the date as well. But if I'm interested in looking forward to the month ID, right? I can simply go forward with the month ID as well, right? From the start of month itself, I can, or from the date itself, I can simply go forward with my month ID, and based on that specific month ID, I can simply go forward with calculating that whether if it is January or if it is February, or what exactly it is, right? So we can discuss about this thing, or what exactly we can do at this point is that in our date column itself, we are having these multiple months mentioned, right? So if I'm doing one thing from my side is that if I'm trying to come up with a new column, and that new column will be based upon the month name. So for example, if I'm extracting the month name from this date column, and from that month name, that new column that I will be creating, I will be making the use of the switch statement, wherein this switch statement will now be focusing upon this month name column. And then based on what month name we are having, we will be trying to show a value from 1 to 12. So 1 will be corresponding to January, 2 will be corresponding to February, like that. Right. So for that, first of all, let us look upon our, first of all, we can go forward with our backend, so that we can extract out our month name. So let me click into the transform data option, and so these transformation you will always be required to do whenever you are trying to come up with the new columns, right? So that's why uh, transform data is not exactly a kind of step that you can always go forward with before modeling itself. as most of the time, whenever you are interested in coming up with some new important information, you can again come up with these specific transformation techniques, right? So just because now it is having we are going forward with date and need to add new column. So we will be going forward with date, and what exactly I'm interested in is the month or the name of month, right? Yeah, so these month values I will be trying to extract, right? So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of these values that you can see on the screen, that is something how exactly these are getting extracted. That I will be showing it to you via making the use of switch, right? So I won't be going forward with these values by simply going forward with the inbuilt tool that is there in Power BI. We will be showing you practically at how these month values are getting extracted. So at this point, we won't be inserting this month, but what exactly I will be inserting at this point is the month name. So let me go forward with the name of month, right? So now we are having proper name of month, right? So month name is going to be our column name. We are completely fine with that, and let us get back into our front end. Whatever changes you are making in the back end, you should make sure that those changes are getting loaded in the data model. You can see that that the data was getting loaded in the backend itself, right? And now we are ready with the month name. And once we are ready with our column, we are ready with our expression, right? So now this expression I will be considering as my month name. So let me go forward with creating a new column over here itself. I can click over here itself. So just because we are creating a calculated column, so I will be taking the row reference over here, or the row context I will be considering. And let me go forward with month ID. Right. So month ID will be giving us the value as 1 for January, 2 for February, like that. So for example, if I'm going forward with if else, I can show you that why exactly switch is very important, right? So if I'm going forward with if else, and the expression will be the kind of column that I will be considering. So the column is going to be in my calendar lookup, and in the calendar lookup itself, I'm having one of the um, column that is month name. So now this particular expression I will be considering. And now if this calendar lookup month name is equal to January, right? So if it is equal to January, then what exactly I want is that I want the value to be shown as 1. And you should always make sure about one thing in writing switch clause, that you should always pass on the string value only. Always a string value should be passed over here, right? Then comma, I can go forward with my next if else clause. So if again calendar lookup month name is equal to February, right? And in that specific case, I want to show the value as 2 as my month ID. In a similar way, let me go forward with my next if else clause. If calendar lookup month name is coming out to be as March, then we want to show the value as 3, right? Or if it is having any of the other month, like let us not exactly go forward with the rest of the 9 months that we are having. We can just simply go forward with showing others for our rest of the 9 months, right? If any of these three conditions are not exactly meeting, that means whenever our month name is not exactly January, February, or March, then for that specific case, instead of putting 1, 2, 3, I will be putting others over there. This else condition I will be putting over here. So now one thing you can see over here, and that is how many number of if conditions I'm required to put in, right? So over here itself, we can see that into my month ID itself, yeah, how many number of brackets I'm required to put in, then how many number of multiple if else clause I'm required to put in from my side. So that's why it's always a good option to go forward with switch. As if I'm not exactly going forward with that, then these many number of if else clause you are required to make the use of. So that's why I will be showing it to you that how exactly we can go forward with our switch clause to represent the same result, but in a more efficient way, right? So let us jump into our switch clause. So let me remove it over here. I'm not exactly interested in this if clause. I will be going forward with the switch one. Now in the switch clause, I will be first of all mentioning the expression. You can see over here, right? The syntax, complete syntax. So expression, this blue mark that you can see. So you have to first of all mention that specific column name. So what exactly is my column name I'm interested in is from the calendar lookup table. I'm interested in month name. So you don't have to go forward with writing again and again the same month name, right? Once you're done with writing the expression, press comma. Now the first value. So if the value in this specific column is coming out to be as January, then what value I should return is, or let me show it to you in the next line itself so that it will be a more clear to you, you know. So in my expression that is calendar lookup table, if I'm coming across January, then in that case, I will be returning the month ID as 1, right? In a similar way, if I'm coming across the value as February, right? I think it's fine. So if it is February, then we can go forward with writing month ID as 2. In a similar way, if it is March, then we can represent the value as 3. So we will be showing you that definitely there is a doubt that we will be that you might come across, and that is why exactly we are passing the value as 1, 2, 3 in string over here. So in Switch, there is always a requirement that you should always go forward with writing the value, or you should always represent the value in your Switch clause as in a string format itself. So you can't actually go forward with writing the integer format. As we will be showing you that once I will be going forward with writing integer, and what exactly I will be getting, right? First of all, let me complete this. So for April month, I'm getting 4 value over here. January, February, March, April, May as 5. Then we can have June, right? For June, we are returning the value as 6. So July, for July, we are returning the value as 7. For August, we are returning the value as 8. And for September, so just think that if you were required to go forward with writing this multiple if-else clause, then how much amount of time it would have been took, right? So definitely writing a switch clause, you can see that how efficient it is, right? Instead of writing those multiple if-else clause. So Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and finally December. Right, so we are done with this. And now if any of this condition is not meeting, then we should represent others as my final else clause. We are done with this, and now let me just close this. And one more thing I would like to show it to you over here, that yeah, you'll get to see that if you're not, and as soon as you're done with this, I would like to show it to you one thing over here, that if I'm not exactly passing a value as a string value over here, what exactly I will be getting. Let me show it to you. So you can see that there is a specific error that you are getting, that expressions that yield variant data type cannot be used to define calculated column, right? So you will be coming across this specific error if you are not making sure about this thing, that the value that you are passing over here is in a string format. So that's why it's always important to pass on the value in a string format itself over here, right? And that is what we are trying to do from our side as well. Now if I'm pressing enter over here, we can see some change over here, and now you can see that for July we are having the month ID as 7. So you are getting the month ID from 1 to 3, and each and every single month ID you are getting, right? So that is how you can get the same value that we were looking upon with respect to our previous case, right? The previous case that we were discussing, that how exactly we can extract out the month ID when we were going into our backend. So this is something you can get whenever you are going forward with by making the use of switch clause, right? You don't have to write these multiple if else expression. Just go forward with this and you will be able to see these changes happening in just a simple way, right? Based on what category you are having into your expression, the value you can simply show in your new column itself, right? This is exactly how it will be working. And now let me show you one more thing, one more switch example, that if you're not exactly going forward with equal to, like in this case, what exactly I was doing was that I was checking that if this expression is equal to January, then one should be shown. If this expression is equal to February, then this value should be shown. So equal to we were considering over here, right? But what if I'm not interested in equal to, and if I'm interested in those comparison operators? And that is something we can look upon at this point. So let me go forward with my new table, that is the product lookup table. So now in my product lookup table, I'm having these multiple columns, but what column I'm exactly interested in is my product price, right? So let us simply go forward with the product price, as we can simply define a range over here, right? That in my product price column, if the product price is coming out to be greater than 500, then the uh, price point, I can simply call that column as price point, that the price point can come out to be as high, just because the product cost is coming out to be as greater than 500, right? In a similar way, if product cost is coming out to be greater than 100, then I can call it as mid range. Otherwise, it is low. I mean, definitely, if the product price is coming out to be less than 100, then absolutely the price point we can consider it as low itself, right? So this is something, and in this particular case, we are interested in looking into the comparison operator, right? So we are not exactly looking into equal to operator, but we are looking into the comparison operator. So that's why I will be going forward with this, and let me just create a new column over here. So there is a way to write the expression whenever you are going forward with with the comparison operator. So in the case of comparison operator, you can't actually go forward with writing equal to or the similar syntax. You won't be able to follow. But first of all, let me give the name to my column as price point, and now price point will be considering the expression or the column as my. So what exactly is this table name? Table name is product lookup, and product lookup is having this column as product cost or product price, sorry, right? So if the product price is coming out to be greater than 500, then what I should put over here is high price point, right? That is something I should show first of all. In a similar way, if in the product lookup table itself, if my product price again is coming out to be greater than 100, then I should represent as let us go with mid range, right? So my price point is going to be mid range in this specific scenario. Otherwise, if it is coming out to be as not, if these two conditions are not exactly meeting, that my product price is not even greater than 500, or if it is not greater than 100, and definitely it should be less than 100, right? So in that specific scenario, we can simply go forward with low range, right? That is definitely one of the good example to show the price point. But at this point of time, you won't be able to go forward with this, just because switch clause doesn't really work with respect to the comparison operator. As switch clause always used to work with respect to, as you can see that we are getting error over here, right? Now, why exactly I'm getting an error over here? The function switch does not support comparing values of type true or false with values of type text. So you should always consider using the value or format function to convert one of these values. So what exactly you can do over here to come out of this error is that you can simply pass on true as your first parameter. And once you will be passing on true as your first parameter, then you will be able to see these changes happening in a proper way. And now you can see that we're having a proper price point, right? The proper price point is associated with respect to each and every single row, just because it is a row, it is following the row context, and you can see that if the product price is coming out to be less than 100, it is low. If it is coming out to be greater than 100, it is mid-range. And in any of the scenario, if it is coming out to be greater than 500, so we have high as well. Let us just look upon wherever we are getting high. All right, so we are having some of the scenarios, right, wherein we are getting high as well. You can see over here, right? So definitely, you can filter out the values. You can see that you will be able to put the conditions mostly if you're following the proper clause that is there in as per the switch condition. Then definitely you should be making the use of equal to operator only. But if you want to go forward with the comparison operator as well, then first of all you should pass on the first parameter as true. Only when you're passing true over here, then only you will get to see the working of these comparison operators, right? And you don't have to write these multiple if else clause. You can definitely go forward with writing this simple switch itself. So that's all about the switch clause that you can go forward with, and definitely you can try out this from your side as well, so that it will be a bit more clear to you. And we will be meeting you in the next video with the assignment that will be regarding this these clause that we have discussed, right? So let us meet in the next video, and thank you. All right, guys, so let us get into our second assignment corresponding to the logical functions that we were discussing in the previous two videos, right? So let us jump into our first key objective. So our first key objective is mentioning that we have to create a calculated column in the customer lookup table that should have the name as customer priority. So if the customer is a parent and has an annual income, so parent, we have already figured out that if a specific, so we have already created one of the column as mentioning that whether if a customer is a parent or not based on the number of children customer is having, right? So you can simply take the reference of that specific column itself. So if the customer is a parent and has an annual income that is greater than $100,000, then the customer priority should be equals to priority, right? Otherwise, the customer priority should be equals to standard. So one thing you can see over here that we are putting in the first key objective, in the first part, we are putting a AND condition over here. So we have already explored that there is going to be a AND condition, or there's a AND logical function that you can make the use of if you want to simply go forward with returning a value that is based upon both of the conditions to come out to be true. Or you have to pass on the two logical tests in your expression, and based on both logical tests to come out to be true, you can simply return a value. So that is something you will be looking into your first key objective first part, and then if it is not exactly meeting, then you can go forward with keeping the customer priority as standard itself. And then the second key objective is to create a calculated column again in the customer lookup table that should have the name as income level. So if the annual income is coming out to be greater than $150,000, then the income level should be very high. If the annual income is coming out to be greater than equals to $100,000, then you can keep the income level as high. If the annual income is coming out to be greater than $50,000, then you should keep the income level as average. Or if the annual income is coming out to be as not exactly meeting any of these above these three conditions, that simply means that the annual income is not exactly greater than, or the annual income is coming out to be less than 50,000. Then in that case, you can simply keep your income level as low, right? So this is something you can keep over here, and this is going to be our second key objective that you have to simply go forward with. And one more key objective you would like to, we would like to you guys to solve from your side, and that is going to be our bonus key objective, right? So let us get into our bonus key objective. So we have to make the use of a switch function. Well, just because in our last video itself we were discussing about the switch function, so definitely it's very important to get a hands-on with respect to switch function itself, right? So you have to use a switch function to create another column named as education category. So if the education level is high school or partial high school, then you should keep the education category as high school itself. If the education level is bachelor's or partial college, then you should keep the education category as undergrad. Or if the education level is graduate degree, then you should keep the education category as graduate. So again, in this case, you have to simply refer to one of the expression or one of the column. And based on that specific column, you will be simply looking into the values that specific column or the multiple categories that specific column is consisting of. And on that basis, you can simply return a scalar value. Right, so these are going to be the three objectives that you have to try from your side. Definitely, we will be meeting you in the next video with the solution of these key objectives. But definitely try out these objectives from your side as well. So let us meet in the next video with the solution of these key objectives, right? So thank you. All right, guys. So let us get started with the solution of our second assignment. So first of all, let us have a look upon the different key objectives that we are having, right? So the first key objective that is theirs is to simply go forward with our customer lookup table, and we have to create a new column that is customer priority. And if the annual income is coming out to be greater than $100,000, then the customer priority should be equals to priority, right? And the customer should be parent. So we will be showing you that how exactly that and logical function will be working over here. Or one more thing, we can show it to you over here. That is a double ampersand. But definitely double ampersand you can make the use of if you want to go forward with multiple logical tests. So let us get into the solution of this. So let me jump into my Power BI. Let us get into our customer lookup table. So we have one of the column as annual income. You can see the different values over here with respect to each and every single customer, right? So the value is going to be in dollars. Let me keep it in dollars. So this format you will be able to see in the currency format in the front end itself. Again, the difference between format and data type. Format show you the value in the front end. Data type used to store the value in the back end, right? As you can see the difference between the data type and the format, right? Okay, annual income, we are done with that. And we are having the second column as the parent, just because we have to come up with the third column that will be referencing both of these column values, right? This is something we are required to do. So let us go forward with creating the new column. And we have to name our new column as customer priority, right? So let us give the name to this column as customer priority itself. So let me name it as customer priority. Right, we're done with that, and let us move forward with my if clause. So my if clause, I will be putting the logical test, and that is if in my let us directly write this customer lookup parent. So in the customer lookup table, if parent is equals to yes, if it is equals to yes, then what is and one more condition I want to put over here, right? So either you can go forward with this and operation, or what one more thing we can do over here, and that is double ampersand you can make the use of. So double ampersand is one of the more effective way that you can go forward with, right? So that is something we are going to make the use of. And the second condition which I want to put over here is the income, right? So if the income is coming out to be greater than $100,000, right? 100,000. So if the income is coming out to be greater than 100,000, then we can put the condition that what exactly the priority I want to show over here is going to be, or what is the customer priority, that is going to be priority itself. Priority I will be setting over here. But if this specific condition is not meeting any of the condition, like for example, even if the customer lookup annual income is greater than 100,000, but that customer is not a parent. So if any of the condition is coming out to be false, or other cases that if the customer is a parent, but the annual income of that customer is not greater than 100,000, then in that particular case, the customer priority I will be setting as standard. Right, we are done with that, and let us see that how exactly the first key objective solution is on the screen, right? So we are getting our newly created table, that is customer priority, and it is having the two categorical values, that is standard or priority, right? So if both of these conditions will be meeting, that is the annual income should be greater than 100,000, and if the customer is also a parent, then we should keep the customer priority as priority itself, right? So in this particular case, it is coming out to be a standard. So any one of the condition might not coming out to be true, or both of the condition can also not come out to be true, right? The customer might not be a parent. Along with that, the customer annual income might not be greater than 100,000. That can also be one of the situation, right? All right, we're done with that. Let us get into our next part of the first key objective, and that is okay, we are done with that, right? We are done with our first key objective completely. So now let us get into our second key objective, and we have to create a calculated column in the customer lookup table itself, that is the income level. So if annual income is greater than 150,000, we should keep the income level like this. Okay, let us get into this. Let me create a new column over here. And let me name this column as income level, right? That was something mentioned in my key objective. So income level, I will be naming it as, I will be going forward with my if clause. So if in the if clause, what exactly I want to consider is the annual income in my customer lookup table, right? So if the annual income in my customer lookup table is coming out to be greater than what? Greater than $150,000. Then I should keep the income level as very high, right? Yeah. Otherwise, the second condition I will be putting. So there's always a kind of good practice, as I was mentioning from the previous videos as well, that you can keep the multiple conditions if you're going forward with in multiple lines, so that it will be a bit more clear to you, right? So a more clear and concise kind of syntax you can write over here. Well, that is going to be our first condition. Now the second condition we can move forward with that if in our customer lookup table, if the annual income is coming out to be greater than 100,000, then we can keep it as high. Also, one thing you have to make sure about this thing, that just because you're keeping one more condition over here, so you have to put it in the if clause itself, right? So even if this condition is not meeting, then let us get with respect, let us consider our next logical test, and that is if it is coming out to be greater than 50,000, then average. So that is going to be our third result that we can expect. And if these three conditions you are not exactly able to meet. So for example, if your annual income is not exactly coming out to be greater than 50,000 as well. So if any of these three conditions are not meeting, then definitely there is going to be a condition that the customer is having the annual income as less than 50,000. So in that case, you can keep the income level as low, right? This is something you can do. So that is something we are going to keep over here. So if any of these three conditions are not meeting, then we can keep the income level as low itself, right? And how many number of brackets we are having over here? We are having three brackets, one, right? So you have to always make sure that you are closing the bracket in a proper way. You will get to see that this bracket is closing, this closing bracket is for this opening bracket. A similar way, this closing bracket is for this opening bracket, and the third closing bracket will be for this opening bracket. We're done with our second key objective as well, I think. Let us see the solution, or what we are getting in our income level, right? So we are getting the proper income level column over here. Average, high, low, very high, you are getting on the basis of your annual income. So we are done with our second key objective as well. Now let us jump into our last key objective, that is the bonus key objective. So we have to make the use of switch function for getting the education category. Again from the similar table, right? So the column name is going to be education category. Let us jump into that. All right. Let me go forward with creating a new column. So education level, you can see over here, right? This column you have to consider. All right, the column name is going to be education category. Now in this education category column, you have to make a use of switch, and you have to put first of all, you have to mention in the expression. In the expression, you have to mention that what specific column you are considering over here. So the column that I will be considering is going to be the education level, right? So customer level, education level, I'm considering. And now let me go forward with the values. So in the expression or in this specific column itself, if the education level is coming out to be as bachelor's, or if the value is coming out to be as bachelor's, then what value I should return over here? So if the education level is bachelor's or partial college, right? If it is, you should return undergrad. So the value that you should return from your side should be undergrad itself, right? But now let us get with respect to our second value. If it is coming out to be as what it was, high school, right? That's just a partial college. If it is partial college, then again we should return the value as undergrad in our education category. Or if it is coming out to be as high school or partial high school. So it doesn't really matter that where exactly you're putting your conditions, right? You can simply put one condition above the other. That is doesn't really a kind of factor that is something you should look upon. You can put any of the condition over any place. What exactly we want is that for the proper value, a proper result should be associated with it, right? That is something you have to make sure. So for high school, you can keep your education category as high school itself, right? In a similar way, for partial high school, right? For partial high school, again, you can keep your category as high school itself. Our final two conditions. If the education level is graduate degree, right? Then you can keep the category as graduate, right? And if any of these conditions you are not able to meet, then you can keep it as others, right? As the final else clause. We are done with this. We are done with our switch clause. Let us see that we are whether if we are able to get the proper education category or not. Okay, we are getting the values, right? Let us see that we are getting the proper values or not. We are getting either undergrad, that is completely fine. Either it will be bachelor's or partial college. We are getting graduate as well. That means we are going to have a graduate degree over here as one of the value. Then we are getting high school as well. So maybe wherever we are going to have high school or partial high school as our education level, we are getting high school corresponding to it, right? So proper category we are getting. So that's exactly how you can go forward with the solution of each and every single key objective. It's not exactly difficult, right? You just simply have to practice from your side, and by practicing out these key objectives, you will be easily able to do it, right? So that would be all in our assignment, and we will be meeting you in the next video with our next category of functions, right? So let us meet in the next video, and that would be all in this video. So thank you.